Peter's here. Hi, Peter. Sarah Thompson's here. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. We'll be starting in a few minutes, just kind of getting our bearings here, waiting for people to trickle in. Anybody have any highlight simulations of the week or month? Anything cool to report that you're working on?
Finished up the our dental scenario. So we now have a dental chair emergency VR scenario in Acadicus.
Very cool. That sounds like another episode of The Pulse. Take a
And then
tour of Mitch's new dental scenario.
we're building I'd finished up with our last semester course. We we built the 4-bay scenario, but there's 4 different patients, and the students get all the information before they come to the scenario, and they have to decide who do they see first, second, third, and fourth, and then justify that, and then they come and do that plan, and then afterwards they reflect on did they make right decisions, should they've asked better questions, things like that. So and we have a chest tube patient, we have a pneumonia patient, we have a ped patient in there because they couldn't get placed on a ped unit soon enough, and then an emergency bowel surgery are the 4 patients in that space that they have to work with.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mitch, which assets are you using for those? Are those the new Gen 2 patients?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just picking between which ones you like best or fit the script?
I started the script, and then when I was looking at the patients, I'm like, oh, that doesn't fit all my patients, or I would have to double dip on the same patient. So then we
Right.
just altered the script a bit to match the patient with the Gen 2s that we wanted to use. And so, yeah, we have a lobectomy with a chest tube that's one in there, and it'll be a fun scenario to use.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, since I'm in a new spot now teaching Go Buffs, I get to start all over again and see if we can't do a new project with WTAMU. So my other partner in crime, we're going to start doing some research and do some grant work again. So thank goodness I've already built one project from the ground up, so that gives me a little bit of experience for that. But we also just got changed from a department of nursing to a school of nursing this last week. And so that's going to also give us some other opportunities for funding and development and research. And so that's exciting. And I should be graduating finally by June 1st.
June 1st.
Finally. So excited.
This is a doctorate, right?
Yes, I
PhD.
will be done.
Dr.
So
Young.
party all summer. You can edit that out, and then I'll go back to work.
Excellent.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Congrats. I know that's been a long time coming. Really, that is amazing.
Right.
Amazing achievement.
So I miss our VR stations though. I'm going through a little bit of withdrawal because we don't have them here yet. So I'm kind of in a state of mourning.
You'll be back.
I'm back.
You'll be back.
I hope so.
Well, we're at 6 after. I see Melissa Surway joined. Melissa's going to be joining us next week for a discussion as well. So excited about that, showing what Madison College is doing. Well, I think we should get started. What do you all think? If Debbie and Jamie join us, they can just jump right in anytime. This will be pretty informal discussion anyway, so I think we can get the ball rolling. So let's just see here. I've got a couple of very brief announcements. So first thing, there's 2 things. So next week we have a Pulse Live, but it's going to be at a different time. So this is going to be the first time we've done the Pulse at a different time other than noon Central. This is going to be at 10 a.m. Central next Friday, the 29th. And we're going to be looking at how Madison College is using the open RN and using VR and Acadicus in general in their nursing program. So we're going to have a few people joining us for that. 10 a.m. next Friday, the 29th. And in April, I am excited to announce that on April 19th, we're going to have a panel. April will be pediatric month, just like this month has been nursing educator month at Acadicus. April is going to be pediatric month. So we're going to have a panel with Dr. Slayman from Nemours DuPont Children's Hospital, Dr. McAdams from UW School of Medicine, and Dr. Jacobson agreed to join us as well from Boston Children's Hospital, April 19th, noon central. So with that, we're going to keep this pretty informal today as usual. I could go on obviously all day long about OpenRN, the initiative, the opportunity, it was just such a great project that we got to be a part of. And I could spend the rest of our time together singing the praises of everyone that's on this panel. Some pretty amazing and fearless innovators. But what I'm going to do is actually keep pretty quiet. I think as hosts, we're going to keep quiet, and we'd rather hear from the panelists and hear about the amazing things that you're working on and insights that you have. So what we're going to do is just start off by watching the video. This is the OpenRN video. This is the watch party for the OpenRN video. And I'm going to open up on my screen. And you'll have to let me know if you can't hear the audio because I won't be able to see. I'm going to share my screen here. We'll watch the video and then we'll have a brief discussion. How's that sound? All right. Here we go. Hide my controls.
Put the headset on.
The research tells us that we're graduating the same number of nurses that we always have in the United States. We're not meeting the need of our population growth.
We're working through a perfect storm in terms of capacity.
Nursing shortages like I have never seen before.
And then to compound the shortage, nurses that are working are getting burnt out and leaving the profession.
You see it when you have to be rushed to the emergency room and you're trying to get a room on a Friday night. They're understaffed and they're frantic. It's devastating. It's terrible.
There's estimates right now by the Department of Labor that by 2030, there'll be over 500,000 nursing positions that can't be filled because there won't be enough bodies with licenses. Who's going to take care of you when you get sick? Bring you in, take your vitals, make sure you're safe. Students need guidance, they need oversight, and so we rely on the unit nurses to help in that education, but when there's not enough of them, we can't do that. And that creates a bigger problem on top of things because now we're shrinking the number of people we're admitting into nursing programs.
Finding clinical placements is becoming harder and harder as things change in the healthcare environment.
We're facing a major challenge, and if we have anything that we can do to be able to provide technology that can help ease or facilitate that clinical shortage, then we have a responsibility to leverage this technology.
We need to do whatever we can to pull in more quality nurses to care for everyone. OpenRN is part of the solution. OpenRN is really about decreasing the barriers for nursing students to be successful in graduating from nursing school and becoming nurses. There were 4 colleges that were considered lead colleges as part of the OpenRN grant. NWTC is one of them. Every resource that we create is not only free, but can be reused or remixed, revised by other colleges. We're providing the free textbooks where students can learn about the concepts, and then incorporating virtual reality allows them to practice that clinical judgment that they need when taking care of patients.
There's those big key areas that VR is super beneficial for if it's expensive or impossible or dangerous. In medicine, it's almost like all of those, where you really want to make sure that you've had an opportunity to practice and learn how to work with a patient in a safe and controlled environment where there's no risk of harming a real patient before you get into the field.
We can put them in these scenarios and they can make mistakes and they can learn from those mistakes. And it will also help with our clinical placements. When you look at our curriculum, students need so many clinical hours.
Human patient simulators are great, but they can only do a certain amount of things. We can program AR, VR to do anything that we want. This technology is so much more affordable than to build out an actual human patient simulator room. With our traditional human patient simulator rooms, we take one student at a time per scenario. With AR, VR technology, we can take multiple, several, and almost unlimited amount of students to the same scenario at the same time.
If I'm having to work harder to breathe, I'm not getting as much O2 in. So what does my heart have to do to compensate for that?
Pump faster to circulate the blood since there's
The research is showing that students retain 4 times faster and retain 4 times longer with virtual reality education. We're able to reach students that maybe don't learn the best from lecture or listening to things. They may be people who really, thrive on learning by doing. And virtual reality hits all those different learning styles.
If we can replace some clinical with virtual reality and still get the same effects for our students and the same outcomes, let's use that, and hopefully we can increase the number of students that we have and that we can get out into practice.
I'm just going to listen to your lungs.
When the Open RN grant started, we put together an advisory committee and we said, what do you really want to see in a virtual reality product? Loud and clear, the advisory committee said, we really want situations that nursing faculty can customize. So we're not relying on programmers every time we want to tweak a scenario. And so that's why we went with Acadicus, because we're not stuck to pre-programmed scenarios. It's really limitless in terms of what any faculty member can create.
We always want to personalize the education to the students we have and the needs they have. So now if my students aren't doing well on an exam topic, I can go and create a scenario and we can use it and strengthen that knowledge base for them. Things change constantly within nursing. There's new ways to treat diabetes, new ways to treat asthma, new ways to treat CHF. And my job is to give them the most accurate information and the most up-to-date information possible.
One of the areas that intrigued me was being able to bring about the types of scenarios and cases that we really wanted our students to experience that we couldn't replicate in real life. Crossing those barriers, getting into those difficult areas. Some of my favorite topics for the scenarios are the diversity, equity, inclusion scenarios that I've helped with. We have a transgender scenario that really bridges some of those gaps. I also authored one that was based on human trafficking.
Where do I see virtual reality nursing education in the next 5 to 10 years? What we're going to see is a educational revolution. We're going to have new ways of offering education that are going to be more meaningful, have greater impact, and are going to not only educate the next phase of nursing, but this technology is bringing humanity into the classroom. Things are growing and developing at exponential rates in the VR world, and this is going to be the next phase of nursing education. So you might as well get on the bandwagon now instead of waiting.
I think everybody that gets into healthcare and medicine has something that really sort of motivated them or drove them to this. It's more than just a job. It's a passion. It's a mission. There couldn't be a more important thing, I think, for us to do than to provide tools that allow, for this access to clinical experience to help improve.
What I want to be able to elicit in our students is that passion of nursing, right? I think once you get into that world and you just start to feel and experience that, it's catchy, it's invigorating. There's a bunch of us that have created a community and we're ready to help. All you have to do is put the headset on. Come join us. Be part of the change today.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone who participated in that. That was really, really cool and fun to be a part of. And I also want to thank Bravebird Media. They created the video They had a great team come up there with all the audio and all the equipment, the video equipment, did a great job editing that, putting that together. And I also want to thank Eric Herkert Oakland, who is our fractional CMO, who's been helping consult on the creation of this video. So thank you to Eric and Bravebird, Alex and his team there. Really great job on that video. So what do y'all think? You already said what you thought on the video, right, Mitch? Like I already said my piece.
What do I think? I'll start us off then. I will say that I think that it's what Jamie said is really true. You got to put the headset on, and once you get in there, you can't help but be hooked. You can't help but see the power of this, and I think that we're at the beginning of what's going to be the next phase of what education looks like.
Yeah, I would agree. Unfortunately, it looks like Jamie isn't going to be able to make it today. Unfortunately, I think this might have been her idea to have a watch party. Unfortunately, poor Jamie. I wish she could be here. But yeah, she kind of ended it off with a great quote, just join the community, which I think is one thing I'm getting very excited about as I'm seeing more and more often the sort of connections that are forming between the different people that are working with Acadicus. And I think that's really where the power is at, especially with a platform like ours, where we're not trying to just build a bunch of scenarios and just ta-da, we hope you like it. Like this is really, Acadicus won't work without a community. It just won't. We need people using these tools and building scenarios and sharing and comparing notes and doing research and publishing research. Like we need all that to happen for Acadicus to work. So I think it's really, yeah, put the headset on, join the community for sure.
I haven't sent this yet because we haven't had the watch party, but as soon as we're done today, I'm going to send the link for this video over to my dean. And I've been waiting on it so that I have something to kind of show her, because as you said before, the technology is changing, and I've been in training today on a physical mannequin, but I think eventually those are going to become not necessarily obsolete, but have a really different role in nursing education. Even as advanced as they are, there's still, again, the issue of the cost and availability. I know that WT's program has increased their enrollment by 100%. And so we've literally doubled the number of students that they're admitting. And it's a smaller number still compared to some of the other larger schools in the nation. But again, we're running into the same issues of clinical availability, days that we can be there. And so I really am hoping that we can, again, build a new project for this university and make that available to them. I mean, we already know how effective it is, right? So yeah, it's exciting to kind of be not necessarily at the beginning of it, but getting ready to do another big project. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate the video. Mitch, you superstar. Look at you. So good. You and Jamie both. And so yeah, I know the work was hard. I talked to John a lot about the production of this when we were or down, I should say, in San Diego. And so yeah, it was a big deal. Y'all did a great job.
Yeah, it was a lot of content for sure. And I know our team, it took us longer to build the content than I think anybody would have imagined. In general, it takes a while to build content. This is, we're building in a virtual world where it's just, there's so much that goes into quality testing and making sure that everything's working. And so it took us a while to build the content, but I think, the whole idea of the open resources, the open source resources, I think really resonated with me. From the beginning, we wanted this to be a shared library of resources that everybody gets to have access to. So when Kim said originally, hey, I'm working on this project and it's going to be a shared resource, right away it was like, okay, ding, 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 like it's a shared resource. That's a great thing. And then it was our committee decided that the most important thing of all is that they can edit scenarios. And I'm like, okay, and they're in Wisconsin. It's a coalition of schools right in our backyard. Like we can't, we gotta build this. So, and it's interesting that they wanted, they had these 25 scenarios, which I should share a link to just so anybody that is watching can also access these. But, there's these 25 scenarios. So these are the scenarios that were formally created. However, we didn't build just 25 scenarios. We built the content to support 25 scenarios. So technically, you could take that content and you can make 25,000 scenarios. And so that's what I'm really excited about is like now that we have all these patients and all this equipment and all these environments, like now how can we remix and rematch these things?
So John, there's a question in the Q&A. It says, hi, I'll join late. Who do we have for guest panelists today? Caught the last few minutes of the video that was being shared.
Kate, that's a really good point because I never introduced our panelists. I was like, I'm just going to keep quiet and just let everybody, but that's not how you run a panel, John. I'm not a very good host, but I will let you all introduce yourselves because I'll get bits and pieces of it, right? I know more, you guys are all friends first. So I'll let you introduce yourselves, but I'll call you out in the order that you're on my screen. Paul, you're up. Who's
Hi,
Paul
everyone.
Cusick?
Yep, my name is Paul Cusick. I am Technology Director and Solutions Architect here at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Helped with rebranding and rebuild of our sim center as we moved probably 6-7 years ago now into a much larger sim center, all static physical simulators at that point until we found Acadicus and wanted to venture into VR. I've taken VR and moved it around our college into other areas and departments such as social work, sports management, speech, and collaborations throughout. So we've done a lot of stuff with nursing, but also a lot of stuff with our other partners and are starting to venture out into the community now as well and find ways to introduce VR into the community and bring it back to the institution. So.
All right, Mitch. Mitch is next on my screen.
I'm Mitch Sluger, and I am the nursing simulation coordinator at Northeast Wisconsin Technical College in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Kerrie.
Hi,
Kerrie Young.
I'm Kerrie Young, and I was formerly working at Amarillo Community College, now at West Texas A&M University. I've been in nursing simulation for almost 20 years now, and then teaching as a nurse educator with simulation and some VR, teaching for 15.5 years. But how long have I been in VR now, John? Like, oh gosh, when did we do that? The big grant?
At least 4 years ago.
4 to 5 years now. So
yeah.
I'm not new to the VR system, but again, new to my new job.
Awesome. Well, the host, do we want to introduce ourselves? I'm John Brouchoud. I'm the founder and CEO of Arch Virtual Developers of Acadicus. And Bill?
Hi there, I'm Bill Ballo. I am, I work part-time for Acadicus, but my full-time job is at Madison College, and I lead our extended reality center. We serve any program that wants to come to us in the college, and we just picked up our 20th, so I'm kind of celebrating that a little bit. So
Very cool. There's Rick. Hi, Rick.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rick Casteel. I'm the customer experience specialist with Acadicus, and I do a lot of the support and the demos and training when you first sign up and work with us.
There's our panel. Thanks, everyone. Awesome. Well, I guess as we go, does anybody have any sort of like stories about implementing any of the OpenRN content? I know each of you has in varying degrees. Either you've used the OpenRN scenarios plain vanilla right out of the box, or you've edited and created your own, or you've used some of the assets to spin out and create other things. What have you done and what has your experience been so far?
John, I can jump in and talk about experience I had with someone in our community, one of our customers, who, and a lot of new users start out with the hazard ID room as their first experience with their students, because it's really low friction, it's kind of easy to get into. And, when you're first putting on a headset and learning how to do VR, you don't want very complicated actions and motions and grabbing things and moving them around. This is pretty basic. But they really wanted to take it to a different level. And I think this really speaks to how we talk about Acadicus being so customizable. So we were able to start with that, that project that was worked on with OpenRN, and then they added several things of their own. Like there was a falls checklist that they wanted to go over with the students prior to them going into the room. So we were able to take that document and bring it into the hallway and make that part of the pre-brief before they went in. They also had this short little video, right? We can bring video into the VR experience as well as part of the educational experience. And they had that in the hallway. And so prior to the students going in and looking at these hazards, right, they got this briefing and this reinforcement of these concepts that they were going to get ready to apply before they stepped into the room. And then even in the room, they added a couple of other things. They put one of our IV poles that the students were able to adjust the rate, because they added a section to the orders that had the IV going at X rate, and they set it at a different rate in the room. Again, one of those little triggers that they want the students to be able to identify. Similar thing with oxygen, right? We put a nasal cannula, but instead of on the character of the patient's face, we put it in their lap in the bed, right? How many of us have gone in with a patient and O2's off, it's not even on their face, it's at the wrong rate on the wall. And so we replicated all those things. It took 10, 15 minutes to do those edits, and they were really happy with it. And so, oftentimes these open RN assets and configurations can be a starting point, right? And you can change that to meet the learning objectives you might have in your specific class at that time, right? Because, Mitch and Kerrie and Paul can all speak to this, Bill, right? You're using this with everybody from your first year, first semester students, right, who are going to learn very, very different concepts than your, fourth year, getting ready to graduate students. You want to see different skill sets with them. And so, one size doesn't fit all. And so we have these, scenes and scenarios built, ready to go, and you can use them kind of out of the box, if you will. But oftentimes you'll want to adjust them based on, the skill set and the knowledge level that you're introducing these concepts to. Again, first year, first semester student, going into the childbirthing class is going to be very different than your fourth year, graduating student. And what you intend to teach them is going to shift and change based on where that student is at the time. And so, that's just some of the fun I get to have with some of our community and customers, is taking that kind of raw material and going, okay, now what do we want to do with this, right? We're not stuck with it at all. So yeah, you want to add an IV pole? Yeah. You want to add an O2 flow meter? Yeah. You want to change these orders? Sure. And we can kind of do that pretty quickly and give them something that, just really hits on all the right levels, checks all the boxes for them.
When
So-
Rick hit, oh, sorry, Rick, go ahead.
No, I was to say, that's always fun.
Oh, and you did hit on a good point in that you can use those resources, the OpenRN resources, across the board, whether you have your beginner students or not. And I have used a couple of their foundational programs, like you're talking about the hazard ID scenario. We use that not just with our ADN students that are getting the RN license, but our VN, our vocational students. Once we finished the grant, and we were able to open those resources up to all of our students in that program, the VN guys just grabbed onto it and just went with it. They loved the VR systems. We had a few students here and there that were a little bit resistant to use it just because of the physical issue. Sometimes you get those that have more motion sickness or they have trouble manipulating the equipment. However, there's an easy way to get around that. And Mitch, I have VR lab and classroom envy. I just want you to know, because the way you have your lab set up to where that you've got students that are in their safe zones, it's amazing, but you can still see all the way around the classroom, and you can use it as an active learning tool instead of just popping them everybody in the headset and just trying to direct that. But yes, I've Kim and the team that developed these, Jamie, she's not here sadly, but man, what a resource. And if you haven't used it yet, if you're joining as a participant, I mean, and you haven't had the opportunity to use those resources yet, get in there and use them, because you've got everything that you need.
And I will say like because I helped write like the pharmacology one, and the way that the team at Acadicus like took and ran with it, and they made like a new asset called a medication creator. So I don't have to worry about creating, and finding meds. I can just pull the med creator out and bang through that. And just in case people are wondering, so I've been collecting a lot of data after we've implemented. So starting in August of last year. So right now, our average overall experience rating by students is 8.63 out of 10. So they rate us really well. And then in questions about like this experience has helped me to gain more confidence in my knowledge base. 42.3% of our students strongly agree. If they will be more, do they feel like they'll be more confident in clinical settings? 46.5% say after that experience in VR, they will be. 69% say they enjoyed the experience, and 66% say that they want to do more. And my students keep telling me, like, I want more. I want to come back. I don't want to go to sim again. Because in sim, they say they can feel me staring through their soul, and they don't like that feeling. And so they like being in VR because while they know I'm watching and they know I'm there, they don't feel it as much, and they feel way more comfortable, and they're willing to take more risk with their knowledge. And I will say the one last thing, I just did VR on Wednesday with students, and it amazes me how after VR, I have to tell students, we have to move to the next question. We can't keep talking on this one question for 30 minutes of our debrief time. We have to, but they want to share, they talk more, and the richness that comes out of that, because a lot of them, I have just a spot for qualitative data on my surveys, and it's what did you like best about the experience? And it's almost always resoundingly, it was great being able to work with things, but then it's the debrief afterwards. They find the debrief afterwards to be better and more useful than a regular sim debrief, which to me, we all know that debrief is where the value comes out of simulation. And the fact that students are commenting that the debrief is the best part of sim now blows my mind. It makes me want to do a happy dance every single time. And it just reinforces, like, keep going, keep doing what you're doing, because you're on the right track. Because there's times when it's like, is this really working? Is this really helping? It's so new, and people look at you funny when you're doing it. And but when you see the results in the data, you can't help but be like, okay, yep, keep going, more and more and more.
Our nursing program has used Bjorn McClellan. And I like Bjorn, so I'm a paramedic, but I like Bjorn even in the paramedic world because Bjorn's in sort of a long-term care, or is new to this facility and is very confused, doesn't understand what's going on, and is complaining of some chest pain. And there's a decision to be made between, are we going to use pill, so sublingual nitroglycerin, or are we going to use patch, transdermal nitroglycerin? And I like the critical thinking that goes on in that one. And, you know, a lot of people look at it as sort of a simpler, you know, that one's a little simpler. It is. But you know, that critical thinking, that kind of goes to what Mitch was talking about a little bit there, is like, you know, the students, they eat it up. They like it because then they get to talk about it and they get to come up with ideas and they get to, you know, they get to think through processes, and not just completely focus on skills, but focus more than on what that thought process was behind it. And you know, that's sort of where I like watching the nursing debriefs a little bit. I try to sort of stay away if I can, but I like watching the nursing debriefs a little bit, because you know, listening to what they have to say about it is very interesting to me. So, but then, you know, that also speaks to the system where I can now turn that into a paramedic scenario, and it can be really the same scenario. It can be exactly the same scenario. Paramedic students deal with exactly that same problem too. And so we can deal with that same issue and figure out like what way are we going to treat that. So, yeah.
I have a question, just from a professional standpoint, is have you used the Acadicus program for interprofessional education pieces, or is it just for, I haven't been able to look through the library yet. So, because I'm curious to see, how that's working, because I'd like to venture into that piece of it now.
Do you want to do one together? Because we could do them across the country with each other.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I would,
Yes.
well,
Do that. That would be
yes,
great.
I would from the personal standpoint, but I gotta have the station first. So we could, and I'd love to, I'm gonna get my own headset and put it in my office, just so I can play with it. I am, because I'm telling you, I'm going through withdrawal. But that would be great, because I would love to do even a panel or have a demo like this with our crew and anybody that wants to join. And that way we can kind of show off a little bit as to how that does work and give those of us that haven't done it before a little bit of practice with it.
We'll start chatting
Kerrie,
afterwards and we can start planning and we can start it, because it's going to take a while to get all that put together anyway. So, but we can start putting our noggins together, and because we are actually now going to be building our, see, we got 1, 2, 3, and we're building our 4th, 5th, and 6th VR labs. We'll be done with them by fall of 25.
Wow. Okay.
And Kerrie, don't forget, you could still jump into a session in non-VR mode also.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously doesn't have the immersiveness, but just for the sharing, you know, the building process, you can be right there in the room, you know, the virtual room while stuff's happening. So don't hold back from that.
Absolutely.
No, and I'd like to, I mean, thank goodness I do still have access to that so that I can start bringing some of those, with John's permission, of course, some of those things into the new classroom, not in the VR mode so much, but non-VR, so that I have a visual for some of those patients that we're talking about in the classroom. And so that's something that yeah, I'm ready to do some development and some collaboration and really bump the skill level up just from my own personal professional development. And that also gives me a little more, well, anyone that's trying to develop a program or bring the programs into your schools, that if you have those skill sets already, this also gives you an opportunity to kind of strengthen the selling points from the standpoint of, is it effective or not necessarily from the monetary piece, but really and truly from how is this going to affect my students. And Mitch, and I mean, everybody's done a great job, just getting the numbers, and that's what people want to see. Your developers, administrators, deans, all of those what's the word I'm looking for? Your administrators want the data, and because you can't just go in and go, we want this, and they go, why? And you have to have the data to back that up. So, but yes, let's chat, Mitch. I want to do one.
And well, when you mentioned that, I saw Paul's face light up too, because that's where Paul went right away with Acadicus from the beginning, was like, we're going to branch out. We're going to do this across multiple disciplines, multiple professions, and try to get them working together in this virtual world. Because there's certain things that once you've got simulation in this virtual world, suddenly it opens up those possibilities that just have never been, not at least not easily or cost effectively done before. So now you've got all these opportunities, and it's like interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, but then across schools. I mean, that's where it really becomes, because it's so easy. It's really not that much different to run a simulation with all of us in all of our own places than it is to run one all together in one sim lab. So yeah, a lot of opportunities there.
We're in the same building as our speech and communications department as well. And so they have a kind of multiple programs, so speech therapy, and then those and communication disorders, studies and things like that. And they've reached out to the nursing program regarding